Hello and welcome back. Thank you for joining me. And we're going to have a conversation today about a frequently asked question, one that comes up all of the time. And there are several such topics when we study A Course in Miracles, forgiveness being one of them, miracles being another. And this is a topic of conversation that's worth coming back to over and over again because, and in large part because there are now so many videos on this channel. There are over 1,100, which is quite a bit. This series of videos has been going now for 3.5 years at the clip of several each week. So if you don't want to go back sifting through, I get that completely. So let's have a conversation, a renewed conversation today about the body and the Course's repeated statement that we're not a body, its insistence that we're not a body, and our persistent resistance to said fact that we're not a body. Yeah, this conversation comes up all of the time. And in almost every video, on an ongoing basis, where it does, something comes up that we need to hear over and over again. We've always known that we're not a body, despite appearances, despite aches and pains and gray hair and hair falling out, and the fact that this thing is highly fallible, it's breakable. I mean, its bones break, even if they're strong. You could be involved in an accident, like an auto accident, as I was 11 years ago, and things could shatter. Yeah, it doesn't last. And yet we take it to be us. And what a limitation that is. We don't often see it that way because, of course, we've been conditioned to think that this is us. It is not us, and we know this. That's the refrain that comes up over and over again every time this idea arises on these videos. Our inner teacher wishes us to know this. You are not a body, and you do know that. That is part of what has us on the spiritual path in the first place. It's part of what has us even interested in this in the midst of all of the other content out there. There's a lot. And here you are in the midst of all of these YouTube channels. I saw a statistic a few weeks ago that stated unequivocally that YouTube is the most used social media channel in the world. That's a lot of channels, even on this one platform. Yet here you are. Welcome. We all know that there's more to it than this. We do. It's partly that realization that has us on the spiritual path to begin with. The idea, however quickly it comes and goes in our awareness, even if it's only really fleeting, the idea is that there's more to it than this. Oh man, yeah, is that ever true? We all know this to be true. So why would it be when we're faced, you may choose to say confronted, though that's not really Jesus's intention here. But to the ego, it could seem like a direct assault. You are not a body. You are free. You're still as God created you. The same part of our mind that has us interested in spirituality rejoices to hear that. It's a profound relief, and you could see it that way. To the extent that you don't, that resistance is the ego. All resistance is the ego. So, why do we continue to insist that we're not a body when we look in the mirror, we see an image that looks like what we've deemed to be us? We can feel aches and pains. You might be sitting there thinking, yeah, my knee hurts, or I'm hungry. I'm going to go get a drink of water. I'm going to go get a glass of wine or something, right? Who knows? Yeah. The body cannot contain you. It cannot. It simply cannot contain us. In fact, A Course in Miracles tells us that the body is actually outside you. It's not you. It does what the mind tells it to do, and not the other way around. It is the mind that's in control here. That's why A Course in Miracles is correctly labeled A Course in Mind Training. Yeah, that's where the action is. Think about it. That's where our forgiveness takes place in the mind. The body simply does what the mind tells it to do. And that does mean that of itself, it's nothing. Doesn't mean, and don't get any spiritual teacher in the world wrong on this one. It doesn't mean don't take care of it. It doesn't mean neglect it and riddle it with carcinogens and stuff and just let it flop and fall apart. That is not what we're saying here. That kind of knee jerk reaction is extraordinarily common on the spiritual path, isn't it? In many different traditions. That's not what we're saying at all. If you like to eat healthy foods, then by all means, continue to eat healthy foods. If you like exercise, by all means, continue to exercise and don't let your realization that the body is nothing in and of itself get in the way of your living your life, please. Let's be really realistic here. This is nothing. However, doesn't mean just neglect it. That's hardly a responsible attitude for us as spiritual practitioners. We see it all the time. And perhaps you've indulged in that. It's all too common for people to say, okay, well, all this is a dream, so why should I care? I'm going back to bed. Well, here's a reason, one of many, why you should care. There are people out there that only you can reach. The message of the Holy Spirit coming through this pixelated image will not resonate with them anywhere nearly as well as it will coming from you. So, whatever that looks like, there are people out there that you're meant to reach, which I hope you take to be a very uplifting and very empowering thing. We all have a responsibility to each other on the path, Because there's one of us. There's one mind. Not 8 billion, one. And yeah, we're not a physical body. The body does what the mind tells it to do. That's why we're invited to give the physical body over to the Holy Spirit for the purposes of healing the mind, for the purposes of extending love, the purposes of healing the mind. It can be used as the Holy Spirit uses all things as a tool. But first, we must willingly give it to Him because He won't take it by force. This is very important because we tend to think we're victims of the world. And a lot of us, been raised to think that even God is cruel and jealous. He's certainly not, right? There is no separate other of whom to be jealous, and there's no separate other to attack. Attack is, in fact, impossible. We've chosen to believe that it's part of our daily life. So be it. That's what we see. You could choose to see the exact opposite. Will you? If not today, maybe tomorrow, possibly the next day, the day after that, or whatever, at some point. Doesn't have to be in this lifetime either. So, coming back to the topic of the body, it is most definitely outside you. It is a profound limitation. And when you think that it is all there is, then you experience suffering and pain, loss, the vagrancies of this thing, its loss of strength and umph over time, its decay. It's very helpful when we consider this topic to recall experiences that we've all had. Now, you may or may not remember any of these, but at some point, we all have experiences where we are temporarily, anyway, unaware of the body. I mean, we're aware of it most of the time, especially if it's sick or if it hurts or if you really need to stretch because you've been standing all day or sitting all day and your muscles are sore and saying, stretch me, right? Yeah, I mean, we're often aware of it, but there are moments in our experience where we lose, at least for a little bit, our awareness of the physical body. And we call it many things being transported outside ourselves. We're actually not going anywhere. But we have a sense of expanse. In your experience, this can look many different ways. But we can all become aware of our limitlessness. I've had many such experiences. For the vast majority, anyway, of my life, I've had access to deserts and mountains and wide open spaces, which always remind me of our limitlessness as Christ. There have been many occasions where on a particularly clear day, I saw a far off mountain range that's ordinarily not visible due to dust or pollution or haze in the air, and look right through space, time, and felt expansive. That's just one example. There are many of these, and there are plenty of guided meditations that you can plug into that seek to bring forth just such a feeling, a temporary unawareness of the physical body and the limitations that it entails. To expand, to be aware of our own limitlessness and joy and boundlessness and light as the Christ. If you haven't heard Christ used in such a way, welcome to A Course in Miracles. It is not a term that is limited strictly to the historical Jesus. Christ is the thought of God, the creation of God, the Son of God. In other words, all of us. When we experience our limitlessness, that is symbolic of who and what we really are. It is possible, even if the experience is short in terms of linear time, fleeting, you might call it, it is possible to become aware of the fact that you're not this, to at least temporarily not be aware of the physical body. And when these experiences happen, most people describe them as joyous, as rapturous, as uplifting and powerful. And we're experiencing this because we want it. You want the peace of God. Yes, it's possible to argue with the pixelated image on your screen. Go for it. You're arguing with yourself. That's what happens anytime we think we're arguing with someone else. There's only one of us. So, of course, we're having a nice little spat with ourselves. It only looks like we're engaged in some sort of a heated dialogue with another person. There is no separate other. We all want the peace of God. Ultimately, of course, that is all we want because that's all that there is. So, another way of looking at that is we all appear to be here because we want to go home, in a manner of speaking. We haven't left, but we use that language here on the path. We want to wake up. We all want the peace of God. It's what has us on the spiritual path in the first place. This recognition that there's more to it than this. Yeah, quite so. There's a lot more to it. So, my hope is that you find this conversation helpful and uplifting in some way. And if you do, the best thing, the very best thing you could do at any time is to put these ideas into practice and forgive the Son of God, to do this course, which is how we all really and truly learn. In doing that, our experience demonstrates to us that these ideas are true. In other words, we prove it to ourselves. Want proof? Good. Prove it to yourself. That's how we all learn the best. So this is a topic that often comes up, so it's worth, again, just taking a moment and addressing it in a video like this. Because we, as practitioners, as students of this course, we never really know when something's going to hit. I mean, we just don't know. We cannot pinpoint the exact day and time in this made up scale of linear time of ours where something's going to connect and it's going to land. So perhaps that's today for you. Now, to the extent that this conversation or any of these conversations raises questions for you, that is perfectly natural. It's perfectly normal as part of the spiritual path. So please feel free and welcome to ask them if you've got them. If you've not yet subscribed, that's the prompt in the corner of your screen. Just that arrow is something you can click, hover over. You'll be prompted to subscribe and join us, and several videos do appear each week. Okay, so please do that. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to all of you very soon.